2023. I mean, wow, it has been my personal greatest year ever for video game experiences. Games that left an impact, that resonated, that had me grinning ear to ear, that blew my mind, that deeply moved me. I almost find it tough to speak about because whilst it's been the greatest year ever for video games in my opinion, it's been one of the worst for the people that make them. I believe nearly 10,000 layoffs, exposed working conditions, and a relentless drive to fill those at the top's pockets to an even deeper level. I can't make a video or talk about these experiences without a word for the people that make them, that spend years of their lives just to contribute to a game that I might finish in a single weekend. I appreciate you, and I hope that 2024 is a better one for those in the industry. With that said, yep, 2023 has been relentless for new releases, expansions on old ones, and the live service genre just shitting out seasons and content. It's at the point now where I'm not even looking too far ahead anymore, because there's so much to play. There's always something there that I haven't even played yet. In fact, I can't even believe how much I struggled to make this top 10 list. There are games in this top 10 that on any other given year would be a certified top 3 game. It's bloody crazy, man, but it's a statement of how good this year has been for releases. This is just my list. If a game that you absolutely love this year doesn't show up, it takes nothing away from how good that game is or what it means to you. For me, a video game comes down to two things when I think about them in my lens: fun factor, and the impact and impression the game leaves on me when I roll credits or I stop playing. So, without further ado, let's crack on and get through my 10 favourite video games of 2023. Beginning the list at number 10, it's Super Mario Wonder. I mean, wow. Listen, I think almost everyone kinda in the video game space has some sort of growing up with a Mario game. For me, it was the Galaxy games and Mario Strikers on the Wii and GameCube. It's just an iconic character. I'm not typically a huge platformer. I enjoy them, but I'm never head over heels about them. Mario Wonder is just exceptional on so many levels. I mean, like, the developers of this game, they're off their heads, man. In a good way, though. What one video game would take as a mechanic here and rehash for multiple puzzles and levels and environments, whatever, this game's like, hey, here's this incredibly fun mechanic, use it for a level, and then you never see it again. The level of ambition for variety in this game is just incredible, and it goes back to what I say, fun factor. There was never really a moment in this game I wasn't having fun. The way the Wonder Seeds would just completely alter a level, whether it would turn it into a musical, Mario would turn into some kind of goo or something, or he'd get the star. It was amazing. Not to mention, it's absolutely gorgeous too. Yes, we're all out here begging Nintendo to put some more horsepower in the hardware, but when you have art direction this good, especially on an OLED Switch, it doesn't really matter. The level of depth in the animations too, whether it be Goombas bracing themselves to be stomped on, the bullet bills, it just feels so reactive and so alive. Super Mario Wonder really felt like a new direction on the 2D Mario formula, and I can't wait to see where the series goes next. At number 9, I've gone for Baldur's Gate 3. And look, I can't front it. It is objectively the best game of the year. It's not even close, I don't think. Rightly scooping up the big awards as ceremonies. But for me, it's a testament to how good this game is that it's even on my list. But let me explain. I have minimal interest in D&D. Not a big fantasy setting guy, absolutely not a CRPG guy, and probably 7 times out of 10, turn-based combat, it doesn't do anything for me. So when Baldur's Gate 3 comes along, almost everything is working against it, typically for me. And yet, 70 hours later, I had an absolute blast with this game. Like, if I was into fantasy and even slightly more CRPG games, I think I'd just do playthroughs of this game over and over and over again. The characters, I'm just dying to get to know them. The morally grey areas with decisions and actions and really consequence of your choices. It's not like, oh, here's 3 different big choices that affect 2 endings. This game on paper, it feels impossible. How the game doesn't break almost. It's like almost a miracle. And by the end, I had fun creating my own story through this D&D world. I love the dice mechanic, the skill checks, and even came to love the turn-based mechanics in this one. The world is just so interesting and begging to be explored, so dense with things to do. But the one thing I really like about this game, it really encourages creativity. If you're smart, unlike me, you can literally break the game by being clever. Not like literally break it, but skip combat encounters or story beats and vault over walls. It's just absolutely remarkable some of the things that people have achieved while playing this game. Like, even now speaking about this, I'm like, how did they do it? The characters feel so alive between the incredible performances, but also the amount of recorded lines and the mocap to go alongside it. I'm not sure we'll get a game like this until whatever Larian release next. Hell, even if they made this again and put a Star Wars coat of paint all over it, hell, give them KOTOR. It would be all I would ever need. Baldur's Gate 3 is a masterpiece, and even when everything I typically don't like in a game has me come out this high on it, it goes to show just how impactful this game truly is. In at number 8, I'm going for Armored Core 6. So, this game is actually the final game I finished in 2023. I started before I made a trip over to America, and by the time I got back, other games had dropped that I'd been anticipating for so long, so I just had to move on. Now that I've rolled back around to it, I am so glad that I did. I gotta be honest though, the whole Souls-like formula is starting to tire me just a little bit. Like, I even played Lies of P this year, it's absolutely phenomenal, but I just couldn't bring myself around to finishing it. I feel a little fatigued from it, that's all. Armored Core was so refreshing to me because it's not just like, hard difficult, learn the patterns, dodge at the right time, etc, etc. Of course, there is still some element of that here, absolutely, but this game has the difficulty on another level. It doesn't say, here's a big spongy boss, it's, here's a boss, here's what it's capable of, find out how to best exploit them, how to best defeat them. So instead of pounding your head against the wall and grinding your ass off for souls to level up, you find out what works for you, and you target your enemy's weakness. So for me, I went all in on the lightweight build, dual shotguns, missiles on the back, but then on some encounters I'd go, okay, he's got a pulse shield that I need to deal with, let me get out the pulse blade. Or I'd go vertical rockets for those who keep evading my attacks. It's just so brilliant because you're never racking your brain for long stretches like the bosses are some kind of puzzle, but it's a more refreshing kind of difficulty. Not to mention, it absolutely oozes from software design, between its art direction, which is just stunning man, to the pure style and action. I believe this was made by the same team behind Sekiro, and whilst there's no sick counters or parries, everything you do, it feels stylish. The soundtrack too, it goes off man, and there's a fairly compelling story to be fair that I feel like I understood more than most From Software games before that. I enjoyed it to be fair. Rubicon has so much to offer in its vistas, but also in its variety. You might do a 2-minute mission or a 20-minute one. Bosses had a good breadth of challenge too. Honestly, like, I'm not a big mech guy, but I love sci-fi, and Armored Core 6 really surprised me where, even after rolling credits, I'm still slowly playing through now to see all the endings. This was my first Armored Core game, and if they make more, it certainly won't be my last. Armored Core 6 is an action masterpiece. And number 7 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I mean, come on, right? Number 7 is where this game is at. What a year, man. If you don't know, I absolutely love Star Wars. I got to attend 3 days at Star Wars Celebration this year, which just elevated my Star Wars excitement to another level. We've had Mandalorian Season 3, Ahsoka, Bad Batch Season 2, and even with all of those, Jedi Survivor is easily the best Star Wars media to drop in 2023. They took everything that was criticised about the first and just incrementally improved it. I have to say though, and maybe it's why this is at 7 and not higher, is that first impressions matter. And the state of this PC port and the console ports when it first launched really soured the experience, even on a 4090 for fuck's sake. There's this 30-minute stretch in this game which concludes in one of the best Star Wars boss fights in games, period. But that experience was soured for me, because crashes meant that I lost cutscenes, and the encounter, that final boss encounter that I'm talking about, crashed on me about 32 times. Drove me crazy. But when this game is working, it absolutely captures everything that I love about the Star Wars franchise. A likeable but complicated crew that you would do anything for. Off their tits side characters collecting fish, or just Turgle being Turgle. The Jedi versus the Sith, the exploration of planets, the conflict of being in the light and the temptation of the dark side, and of course, well-earned and well-suited cameos. I know I mentioned having some form of Souls-like fatigue, but the more approachable nature of the Jedi games with that Star Wars paint and Respawn touch, it doesn't get old. Plus, parrying with a blaster shot, I mean, come on, man. Respawn right now, they almost feel custodians of the Star Wars video game world, with a third Jedi entry coming, a first-person shooter on the way, and they're working in collaboration on an RTS game. The reason I think this is the case is they get it. They know and they understand, at least to me, what makes this sci-fi universe so special, so unique. The Metroidvania exploration had so many quality of life features evolved from the first game, the post-game encounters, so much lore, and of course video games best sidekick, BD1. I can't wait to see what Respawn cook up next, but Star Wars Jedi Survivor is just a triumph of what it means to be a Star Wars video game. At number 6 is Hi-Fi Rush. So, when I roll credits on this game, I said to my friends that if this game by the end of the year is not in my top 3, never mind top 5, it is the greatest year ever in video games for me. It almost killed me not being able to put this game in my top 5. Hi-Fi Rush shadow dropped back in January, and whilst it looked cool in that initial reveal and drop, I don't think anyone by the time the credits would roll thought it would be that good. I mean, rhythm-based stuff is not usually my cup of tea, but everything in this game just oozed personality and confidence. It goes back to what I said at the start. I look at the impact that a game has on me and the amount of fun I had playing it. I cannot understate just how much of a good time Hi-Fi Rush was. The art style and direction just felt so fresh and bright and colourful. The music from the original tracks to the licensed ones was just so full of energy and charisma, and the characters you met along the way were just so engaging. This game was mesmerising, how the world will bop to the beat of what was playing. The animation just feels so underrated for what it was doing and what it achieved. Also, a word for the boss encounters. These huge spectacles and the way you'd go through the phases, it was just so unique, but personality is the word that I keep coming back to. This game almost acted as a palate cleanser for me. We're so used to games feeling so formulaic, and whilst this game isn't, free of widely used concepts, I can't think of a game that feels just so different. It felt to me like the perfect Saturday morning cartoon that I would look back on my childhood on with rose-tinted glasses. It just had these characters that young ones would love, but a story and depth that those who have been through life's experiences could also resonate with. A word too on its accessibility, and I don't just mean its difficulty. The amount of options too for people with accessibility struggles was just incredible. And then of course on a difficulty level, I'm not good on rhythm-based mechanics, but not only did this game feel lenient, it rewarded me on a deeper level when I did start to get good at it. I can't gush about Hi-Fi Rush enough. Usually a game released so early in the year can suffer from a little recency bias, but Hi-Fi Rush was so special it stayed with me right the way through the year. What a video game, man. Alright then, we've hit the halfway point and we're into the top 5. Coming in at number 5 is Alan Wake 2. What an experience, man. So that's probably like the majority of people's game of the years between Baldur's Gate and this, and neither of them are in my top 3. But again, I need to reiterate with Alan Wake 2 as well. I am not a horror guy. Games, movies, whatever. It's just not for me. When it's a game, I don't particularly enjoy the gameplay elements of them. I usually don't care for the stories. Again, they're just not really my cup of tea. Alan Wake 2, however, as I said when I did a video on my channel, it made me feel like a survival horror fan. This game just feels bonkers on so many levels, yet feels like it shouldn't be any different at the same time. I love the fact that Saga Anderson felt as a character as my introduction to this story, these characters, to Alan Wake, since I've never played the first game. I love the dual protagonist feature of this game, how it felt different to play as either character, how Saga is fulfilling my desire to be a detective in video game, work out the mystery, fill in the case board, even if it does feel a little handholdy. I love how Alan blends the nature of being a writer as a gameplay mechanic to completely alter a scene. Visually too, not only is it like a top 5 best looking game ever, but the actual art direction of it, this neon lit grim and wet New York, and the woods with the sun peeking through at times, or the various places that this journey will take you on. Sam Lake and Kyle Rowley are geniuses too. I mean, the plot they conjured up is just batshit insane, and it works and is understandable and I could follow along. It's not lost on me, and it's so funny how they're writers writing about a writer writing, you know? To be able to develop this kind of story without losing me is an incredible achievement itself. I didn't love the gameplay, but it served its purpose and felt satisfying throughout. To me, this is an experience, honestly, like no other. Of course, one of the greatest scenes ever too with the We Sing chapter as part of Alan's story. It's a testament to who Remedy are and their standing in the video game space now as a developer. So ambitious and so risky, and I can't thank them enough for persevering with their vision. It challenges what a video game can be. The way they blend live action, CG, and gameplay, it serves to me as an exciting prospect of where video games can go from here, and in particular, where Remedy can take them. Alan Wake 2 is the first game to make me a survival horror fan. 4 to go then. Coming in at number 4, and some will disagree that this counts, but I can't knock it. God of War Ragnarok Valhalla. I cannot fathom that this is a free DLC. I really can't. I'm not complaining in mind. The reason I put it on this list is that I count this as a full-blown game in itself, as an experience in itself. God of War Ragnarok was my favourite game of 2022. It's really one of them moments for me. 2018 and Ragnarok act as a 1-2 punch in one of my favourite video game stories and experiences ever made, period. So naturally, I don't really want to return to it, because it's just such a special experience that I kind of don't want to go back to it. Yet, Valhalla acts as something so brilliant, so fitting as an epilogue to Kratos' journey in the past 2 games and beyond. I can't even fathom, for someone who grew up with the God of War games, just how special this might be. The Game Awards trailer undersold what this was so much. I was like, okay, cool, a roguelike mode, makes sense, seems neat, I guess I'll give it a shot. I was not ready. The amount of story here is the reason it makes this list, because it's just as impactful as the games. Less runtime, sure, but impact, emotion, and the way it resonated with me in the way it ended, it's so incredibly special to me. There are quotes and moments in this experience that have left a mark on me about how I feel about certain things, how my view can be on certain things. Deeply personal moments between Mimir and Kratos, told through the environment or in a one-on-one conversation. The way it makes you feel like you're there with them in a way that a good podcast makes you feel like you're sat in the room with them. The roguelike nature of it suits it to a T. As he learns more about himself, as he learns more about this place, sometimes a run is successful and he learns more about himself, gets to the next stage, but sometimes he fails and he just has to go again. Valhalla has also made me appreciate the God of War combat on a deeper level, how attacks can synergize, status effects, runic attacks. For me, the main story was always get through the combat encounters to reach the next level, the next boss, whatever. I never really stopped for a moment to realise just how good that combat is, because it never asked me to. The upgrades of weapons and perks, it elevates the sandbox to its full potential. The amount of effort that they put into this too, the new enemy types, the environments and stages, the roguelike mechanics themselves, the whole new soundtrack, it really is and feels like the complete package to what is a fitting end to one of my favourite ever experiences in video games. The final 3 then, the Trinity of 2023. At number 3, I've gone with Final Fantasy 16. So my Final Fantasy catalogue, should we say, before this was just Final Fantasy 7 Remake. So I feel new to the series, and maybe that's why this resonated with me more than maybe some long-standing fans. But holy shit, man. I mean, Final Fantasy 16 is absolutely not perfect, don't get me wrong. Some actually atrocious early and mid-game side missions, some of the weirdest itemization I've ever seen in a game that's meant to be an RPG, which again, to that point, no real choice and consequence. It basically isn't an RPG. Yet, Final Fantasy 16 produced some of the highest highs I have and probably ever will experience in video games. There's just no sugarcoating it. The sheer scale of some of the encounters in this game is just, I cannot explain just what this game manages to accomplish. I almost think of it as being like 8 years old and bashing toys together and imagining this huge scale battle in my head, except it's a video game and it's got a score soaring in the background that is better and wilder than anything that I could have imagined at 8 years old. If you want to know the impact this game had on me, I finished and immediately got straight into Final Fantasy XIV and I played from the start up to and including Heavensward. This is wholeheartedly an action game, and the stylistic, flashy combat is so fun, even if at times it's very spongy. The ability sandbox is so power fulfilling. There are some real lows. It takes way too long to really involve the main cast in the fulfilling and engaging side quest. But the cast, I love them here. Cid, Jill, Torgal, and others I won't name for spoiler reasons. Ben Starr's performance too, it's incredible. You feel like you go on this journey with him, the rage, then the acceptance, the hunger, the desire, the pain, the sacrifice, it's all there. Of course, the boss battles, not only is the music special, but the encounters are so big in spectacle, especially when you transform into a Free. And I thought when I did the first one, okay, it's going to be kind of basic throughout. No, it just keeps getting bigger and better. There's one that feels larger than life, and I wish I put my PS5 mic on during capture because I rarely speak out loud when playing single player experiences, right? But this game probably has A record number of times that I did, and B, a record decibel of noise made, let me tell you. And it all culminated too in a final fight where I'm just losing it the entire time. Like I say, Final Fantasy XVI as a package in a critical manner is probably a lot lower than a lot of the games that I've mentioned on this list. And yet, I'm going to remember this game and those moments for a long, long time. Number 2 on the list. Again, some are going to disagree that this can even be a pick, but Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Oh boy, there's a lot of baggage with this one. And here's the thing. I don't think Cyberpunk can ever be the game that it initially promised to be. Because I don't think any game can be that. You'd have to blend Cyberpunk with Baldur's Gate 3 and with a million other different games, seriously. But at the same time, they're not far off, you know? If you're no, my trust in CDPR is gone, I will never trust them again. Fair enough. But I, for one, love a redemption story. It will never excuse how the game launched, but where it is now is pretty special. And Phantom Liberty, in the same way that Valhalla celebrates God of War, Phantom Liberty felt like it took every premium ingredient from Cyberpunk 2077 and cooked up a 10 out of 10 dish that anyone would love a bite of. First of all, look, I recognise my fortunate position, but to play this game on a 4090 with everything cranked up is something to behold, man. I mean, it's the best looking game I've ever seen. Particularly in Dogtown, the neon lighting, the puddles, the way the line peeks through the curtains, and these incredibly vivid and detailed captures of faces, I mean, wow. It's a different level of immersion. Phantom Liberty's main plot is not small in scope either, spanning multiple endings with very real choices to be made that can be in the grey area. The added arsenal of weapons, vehicular combat, the relic skill tree. Dogtown itself acts as a character, which is always a sign of a well-crafted world, just like how Gotham is a character in a Batman story. Every gig feels like they learned from what worked in the base game, and it feels iterative, like how Miles Morales expanded on 2018 Spider-Man side content. There's choices in here too, offering different outcomes or rewards in the side content. Not to mention, it also adds to making V who you want to be. A bounty hunter in Night City, a good cop, or just acting how you would be in that situation, except you can deflect bullets with a katana, so maybe not quite just you. Anyway, I genuinely feel like Phantom Liberty could exist as its own Cyberpunk game, except this expansion acts as the final and missing piece of the puzzle to really create this world, this game, this experience that I've always wanted to have and have the ability to go back to. Phantom Liberty gets crazy with its plot. I mean, it's bloody Idris Elba, and there's so many good performances here. I don't need my video games to be full to the brim with celebrities, but my god, if it isn't cool as fuck to have Keanu and Idris Elba in a video game next to each other in such vivid detail, and might I add, incredible performances, it's just so good. The plot of Phantom Liberty is just excellent, the gameplay elements it adds, and while CDPR might be like, yeah, that's just part of the free update in 2.0, and free, by the way, I include it as part of the Phantom Liberty package. Whilst I may never quite recover from the emotional devastation of the new ending that Phantom Liberty provides, I certainly will be engrossed in this world and in this game for years to come. It ticks the boxes that I love in video games, with meaningful choices, state-of-the-art visuals, high production, engaging, fun and varied gameplay that enables me to choose how I want to play in the way that I want to play. Phantom Liberty is the ultimate action game that reminds me why I love these experiences. Alright then, before we hit number 1, which you probably guessed by now, I've got to rattle off a few honourable mentions. I beat 27 games this year. I can't believe how tough a job it was to create a top 10. How hard it is to have left some of these games off the list. So, I'm not a fighting game fan, mainly because, truth be told, I suck. But both Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat 1 for different reasons were phenomenal. Street Fighter 6 enabled me to really learn and become engaged with a fighter and cater at how much I suck before then encouraging me to get better in a really good detailed way. Oh, and it has some amazing visuals too. Mortal Kombat 1, well, NetherRealm really have cracked the campaigns. This was my favourite yet. It's just so high production and the gameplay is so good. Though, those developers, they've got to be disturbed to keep coming up with all these fatalities, mad. Remnant 2 was also a real breath of fresh air. Especially the looter shooter space, it felt unique in both environments but also not overcomplicating the loot, having an engaging loop and being so polished on day one. It's one that I'm kind of sad I've not gone back to. Starfield, I think I enjoyed more than most. Whilst certainly not perfect, I was engaged throughout. It does have some really weird design choices that holds it back, but it's still the first Bethesda game to click for me. Two final ones. Hogwarts Legacy really delivered on fulfilling the video game fantasy of Hogwarts. Whilst its story and characters were kind of forgettable, the authentic experience that it provided certainly was not. And the final one, RoboCop Rogue City, baby. I watched the first RoboCop for the first time this year, and man, this game was so much fun, taking fun factor and dialing it all the way up to 11. It never outstayed its welcome, it leaned into the goofy aspects, and it felt as a really competent first-person shooter. So, my game of the year then. Well, if you know me, it's probably not hard, but it's Marvel's Spider-Man 2. It all harkens back to what I said at the very top of this video. Fun factor and impact. I mean, within a minute of booting this game up, I am smiling, swinging alongside Miles as the music plays, then you're fighting Sandman in this huge city-wide battle where he literally tosses you over multiple city blocks, and it just shows off what video games can be now. I grew up with the 90s show, you know, the This game felt like wish fulfillment for that. Not fan servicey, but it still served up a really personal Spider-Man and Peter Parker story, alongside a really good Spider-Man and Miles Morales one too. That's what made this game a step up. Sure, 2018 with Peter and Otto felt a little bit more personal, but when you're going dual protagonist, that challenge is a massive step up. And I think they nailed it. Miles' lust for revenge on Martin Lee, while the man he looks up to loses himself in the struggle with the symbiote. The gameplay was a step up too. I mean, getting rid of the gadget wheel to then instead quickfire gadgets felt much smoother and much better. Ultimate moves as well, the enhanced traversal like the loop-de-loop, an authentic Marvel New York with wonderful touches of Marvel that highlight the world that you're in, but they show restraint too by not going too far with it. See, I visited New York for the first time this year. A few weeks later, I'm playing Spider-Man 2. Visiting New York gave me a newfound appreciation for this New York that they handcraft because I could navigate to where I wanted to get to because I'd been there, it felt familiar. Going back to the traversal, the web wings too. So much fun and so different, but I'm a basic bitch. Web swinging to me is still the best video game traversal out there, period. So I'm always going to web swing. The boss battles too, they felt better and they learnt a lot from the first game. Maybe one or two went on a stage too many, but they nailed it. They felt more cinematic, but also more complex, more to master. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I love a symbiote storyline. And it goes back to impact. This game left an impact on me. End of Peter's struggle with the suit. The way Miles lets go of hate and revenge. the themes of addiction in what is a stellar performance from Yuri Lowenthal, who put everything into this game. I mean, the whole cast did. The performances here are brilliant. I get to some people, this game is just more Spider-Man. For me, it feels like another step up. The combat feels so much more expansive. The amount of suits and the detail in them just really shines with passion of what the Insomniac devs want to put into this game. The representation of Kraven and Venom and the Rogues Gallery, the wonderful score of John Baisano, the side quests feeling more meaningful and the way they resonated. I mean, Howard, man, I'm still listening to Seabird to today. It all just goes back to what I said at the top of the video. When it comes to video games, two things define what a game means to me: the fun factor involved and the impact it leaves on me after I rolled credits. Marvel Spider-Man 2 put me through all the emotions. It had me grinning, shouting, losing my mind, resonating with characters at their highest and their lowest, their beliefs, their traumas. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is my game of the year and a definitive example of why I play video games. So, that's my list. What an incredible year for games, and for the people that make them, I thank you so much for the experiences that you help craft. You pour so much heart and effort into it, and I appreciate what you and so many do. You are what make this medium the best medium out there. So, my longest video yet. Now, I want to know, what was your favourite games of the year? How bad are my takes? If you loved a game this year, go and tell those developers and thank them for their work. If you enjoyed this video, dropping a like would really help me out. I'm not used to creating big chunky videos like this, but truth is, if you love video games and just celebrating what incredible experiences they can be, hit that subscribe button, because this is exactly where you want to be. Have a terrific day. I'll catch you in the next one.